welcome to Blacklisted Radio. I'm your host, Doug Owen. As always, it's the 21st day of August, 2016. We are here. The last days of summer are upon us. The kids are going back to school next week. So that brings us to interesting topics. Vaccines, by one account, is going to be... it's interesting. I mean, just to see how much propaganda is being put out there by the, big pharma companies that use fear to market, just like most people, to consumers out there. So we're going to get into that. There's a new infographic to counter some of the, conspiracy theories that are out there today surrounding vaccinations and some of the potential dangers of vaccinating. So the war on your body, that supplements this week saw a huge target put on their back by the FDA. Recently, the FDA has been really expanding its authority. It's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this plays out in the courts, but a lot of things that are happening in the background. I mean, I don't know how many people are still paying attention to the presidential election. I think that we have really two people that are so polarizing. For the most people, it's either a love-hate or hate-worse relationship. Just staggeringly deaf is the mainstream media to anything that may disqualify Hillary Clinton to be fit for president. Pretty much one-sided attacks on the comments of Donald Trump. Like them, hate them, repulsed by them. I'm just disinterested. I think a lot of you are as well. So there's that out there, the 2016 presidential election. I feel almost that it's obligatory just to say something about it. But Dr. Drew, you remember Dr. Drew? He used to have a show called Love Lines with Adam Carolla, and it was pretty graphic, but it really spun Adam Carolla into notoriety, into fame, and according to iTunes, he has the number one podcast out there. Period. The most downloaded audio file on the planet, or at least in America. Or the Western world. So, anyway, Dr. Drew would talk about, herpes, anal sex, some really horrific stuff. Adam Carolla provided color commentary, and he also used that fame as the character Dr. Drew, and started that celebrity rehab show, or starred on it. Didn't go so well for some. Some it went pretty well for. Some of those people died, but you can't blame Dr. Drew for every heroin addict out there that seeks treatment. No matter how awesome you are, you can't solve everybody's problems. So I give him a pass there. A lot of people don't. But, when it comes to qualifications for doctors, I think he's probably right up there with the majority of them. So anyway, he had a pretty scathing comment about Hillary Clinton's health, and that's something that the mainstream media absolutely just does not want to address. Really, any of the shortcomings of Hillary Clinton, her policy. We always hear about Donald Trump and his foreign policy, and by all accounts, it looks pretty similar to Hillary Clinton. So, when it comes right down to it, Henry Kissinger, the Brookings Institute, those think tanks are mechanisms of the Republican and Democratic Party, and they are entrenched. There is no anti-war party in the two-party system. There is no pro-freedom party in the two-party system, and I hope more people are catching on to that. You just have to be a little discerning. So, we might as well talk about vaccines for a moment. I'm a father, soon to be of two. 2 boys. Pretty excited about that. That's a revelation that I received this week, that we have a baby boy at the 20-week sonogram. So happy to share that. My son is ecstatic about becoming a big brother. And something near and dear to my heart is my children and what people want to mandate we put into them. Many new and only somewhat tested drugs. I'm not a virologist, just FYI, disclaimer, full disclosure, when it comes to the effectiveness of vaccines. I have a long thought approach to the vaccines that we have today versus the mythology, or the methodology, not mythology, but maybe mythology, but the actual vaccines themselves. Introducing, a small part of something to build your resistance to it, immunizing yourself, in a lot of ways, is something that the human body does, and most people think that that is fundamentally what a vaccine is. Now you have live viruses, non-live viruses, you have all sorts of synthetic chemicals, you have preservatives, you have detergents, you have embryonic fluid from chicken yolk, eggs, all sorts of other products. And I mean, if you just think of it in a rational way, with any kind of discernment, you come to the conclusion that even if vaccine manufacturers had the most altruistic and mind you, not corporate profit-driven agenda, which that's really at the crux of it. I mean, a lot of people kind of take it to a global conspiracy to eradicate and depopulate the world, part of a eugenics campaign that was well and alive in this country and may still be to this day. In a lot of places, it absolutely is. There is no doubt about that, not just in the Western world, but when it comes to whether or not they can produce a product that could suit every person in America, millions of us, the obvious answer is no. It absolutely cannot. I mean, you look at the SSRIs, different antidepressant drugs. I mean, the doctors themselves don't know exactly how they may affect people, their thought processes, and they sure don't know how it'll affect them in 20 years. So when it comes to a lot of new science, new technology, new things that are being introduced, I look at it in two ways. I'm a grown adult. I've probably consumed so many sawdust and arsenic laden chicken McNuggets, cheap, horrible food throughout my 20s. Most people that you find at Papa John's are young, so when you can eat that stuff and it seemingly has no effect on your body, your metabolism's still high. I mean, I ate grotesque amounts of crappy food in my life, and I feel like today, here at 38, I'm still relatively healthy. Even if I died tomorrow, which I hope I don't, had a relatively long run here on planet Earth, or at least about as longer than some. So longer than a lot of people here on planet Earth. So regardless of all those bad, horrible health choices, I'm still here today. But when you take a baby that's neurologically developing, especially in the first 2 to 3 years, and you inject them with chemicals, there may or may not be side effects from, or visible, or very rarely quantifiable problems, neurological issues that can arise. I mean, there's just so many of them that can be completely undetected, and to think that that is tried and true science, especially with, I saw, what was it, 2 weeks ago, big push to start vaccinating pregnant mothers for pertussis or whooping cough, something that was assumingly ostensibly eradicated in the Western world, is come back, and with modern medicine, with antibiotics, very few people die from whooping cough. Far from a pandemic, but brand new vaccines, testing those vaccines, you become the guinea pig, and that's what is frustrating about it, because when you just think about it with somewhat, I guess, skeptical eyes, it's pretty obvious. So the government, the World Health Organization, and manufacturers of vaccines have been quick to counter. Let me see if I can find this. I had it up before the show, and anyway, it's an infographic that you can find at blacklistednews.com if you just probably put infographic, and it's all of the responses, the counterpoints, the auto rebuttal that doctors, healthcare workers, people that are pushing vaccines, nurses, all of the people that you see on a daily basis in the healthcare world can have readily available. Now, it's pretty funny. I mean, I guess people are, you're not going to whip out the infographic right in front of them, so you have to go back and do a little studying. But the responses to what should be pretty, passe questions. I mean, obvious questions. What about thimerosal? People talk about thimerosal, and that's just one of probably potentially thousands, if not tens of thousands, of chemicals that are in the many hundreds of variants of vaccines that you can get today. So, anyway, there is a definite war to dispel conspiracy theories about chemtrails. The U.S. government is taking a hard-handed approach. Now the World Health Organization is doing the same. And I saw some of the latest coverage. I didn't clip it, but KXAN, which is one of our local TV, I think it's the Fox. It doesn't matter. It's one of the mainstream media outlets here, was doing an in focus story on which schools in the Austin, Round Rock, Central Texas area have the most unvaccinated children. Oh my goodness! The whole notion of this herd immunity is probably the biggest red flag for the nostalgia, the mythology around vaccines and how effective they are. When you look at the just dismal results of these vaccines, I mean, time and time again, you hear about half of the people that get the chicken pox, or they get the measles during one of these outbreaks. The media always hypes it up. There's a huge outbreak of measles. I was watching the Brady Bunch just this week, and they had the chicken pox measles party episode. So you realize how differently we felt about some of these potentially debilitating diseases. I mean, mumps and measles, they are not to be mitigated. They are pretty dangerous. My uncle was deaf because during my grandmother's pregnancy with him, she had the German measles, the red measles, and anyway, it had some neurological side effects. So just like the Zika scare here, you had those kind of things that were happening 65 years ago. So I don't dismiss that, maybe some of these diseases, a lot of these diseases have been eradicated due to vaccines and vaccinating certain populations, but not this huge, broad approach. So anyway, the herd immunity is like the backstop. It's the gap filler for the argument surrounding pro-vaccine, pro-vaccination. And I'm not even that anti-vaccination as when it comes to people that are, 5 years old or older, back to all of the horrible chemicals that I've put in my body. I don't think, and you don't see a lot of reports of neurological side effects in people that are, post-pubescent. The older you are, the less likely they'll have a long-term noticeable effect. So I'm not endorsing vaccines, obviously. I'm very critical, and anything that you're putting into your body, you should do a lot of research on. And that's really where my problem lies, is that if you do have questions, if you do, want to know more about the products that you're buying, the things that you're being asked, if not forced, by government to put into your body and into your children's body, this dismissive, here's the infographic approach to making you sound like a kook just because you want to be informed, just because you want to have more information. Look at long-term studies, scientific proof that these things are safe, they are effective, and if they're not, give me a reasonable expectation. I mean, a lot of these inserts, a lot of the times, if you bother to read, they say, 1 in 1,000 people that get this shot, X, whatever it may be, drug, may die. I mean, you see the drug commercials all the time on the television that just have these run-on 30-second to 1-minute disclaimers about all of the horrific that can happen to you if you take this drug. This drug may get rid of your eczema, but it might give you, 15 other horrible plague-esque problems. Maybe, you can get rock hard from Viagra, but it may make you see blue. It may make you want to kill yourself. It may make you throw up. Wow, it's a lot of mays. So do you think that vaccines are any different? Absolutely not. Some vaccines might not be right for you. So that's the real issue. And I think that that's what, when I convey to people, most people can get that. It's not that you think of vaccine manufacturers like any manufacturer of products. Look at Volkswagen. I don't know how many millions of Volkswagen turbo diesels and other makes and models they rig the computer systems to say that the environmental output, the on these the CO2 emissions, all of that, it's monitored. That it was much less than, or actually it changed. It made the motor just burn more efficiently during that time. But I'm sure a lot of people appreciated the gas mileage and other things that they got out of their Volkswagens during that time. So, is Volkswagen an evil corporation? Well, I mean, Hitler did design the Volkswagen Bug, so, and that ironically has become like a symbol of the peace, hippie, progressive kind of movement. So, but the Volkswagen's no different than Merck, Pfizer, Syngenta, any of these other companies, DuPont, Philip Morris. They're now getting into the vaccine business. Yeah, I said it, Philip Morris. Anyway, all right. Yeah, check out the infographic at blacklistednews.com if you want to chuckle, or the next time you debate somebody, you'll have all of their talking points. So it's always about countering the narrative. We'll continue to do that on the other side. Stay tuned.
I was a teenage anarchist, but the politics of convenience in the depths of their humanity.
All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Yes, the World Health Organization has a counterpoint to the deniers, vaccine deniers. You can do this in public. Jeffrey Jackson actually has the infographic. We have it there. And he writes, The endlessly increasing vaccine push on the public at the behest of pharmaceutical companies can be looked at as nothing more than a psychological operation, aka PSYOP. From the European Regional Office of World Health Organization comes the 2016 Best Practice Guidance First Edition, How to Respond to Vocal Vaccine Deniers in Public. That's right. Shout you down. No longer can they remain silent and relevant. From this guide, parents and communities will understand how to see through simplistic messaging maneuvers and counter it. So, pretty interesting stuff. The FDA is going after supplements, nutrients, providers, people that are making, health claims about even cherries. I saw an article this week about a cherry farmer saying that, antioxidants and other organic compounds in, raw organic cherries are good for your health. The FDA having none of that at all. Okay, it's not just the war on cannabis. Trying, we heard about the Schedule 2 reconfirmment of the scheduling of cannabis. It's not just them. Any plant that's out there, anything that can be grown, that cannot be commodified, that cannot be synthesized, that's not part of really, a plastic or petroleum basis. If it really can't kill you, then it's of no use. Kratom. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but it's a derivative or cousin kind of to caffeine. Not an expert, not an endorser, but it's just another leaf plant that the FDA and several states are going after now. So it's not just supplements. It's not just those people. Operation Choke Point has been getting a little attention, and that is going after what the government considers undesirable businesses, gun stores, pornographers, webcam girls, cigar manufacturers, makers. That's an industry that I had to quickly exit because of pending FDA regulation, ridiculous regulation that seems one-sided. We talked a lot about it last week, going after raw milk farmers and the like. So you see where the intention or the focus is by the FDA, but so it's not a shocker. This came from the Alliance for Natural Health USA. The long-awaited revision of the FDA guidance rules for new supplements is finally here, and it's very bad news. Highest level action alert. And if you go to blacklistednews.com, you can click on that, and they have a great way that you can get a hold of your representative and send them a quick note. It didn't stop the FDA regulations, but people, if you send your government a note, they will send you an auto response. So when people say government is not responsive, that's not true. Technically, it's auto responsive. Anyway, so what we're dealing with here is whether supplement industry is allowed to innovate and create new supplements. The FDA is working as usual on behalf of the drug industry, says no. And, they're not always working on behalf of another industry. They're working on behalf of themselves and the continued expansion of their regulatory powers. And, it's just more of a standing army here in the U.S. These guys are locked and loaded, armed to the teeth, going after people that dare sell herbs of any sort beyond cannabis. You're not safe if you're growing basil in this country. At some point, they're coming for you. But anyway, so whether or not you can create a compound, On It Labs, Joe Rogan promotes it, and it's actually the guy Aubrey, I can't think of his last name, Aubrey something or other, that owns On It Labs, and they have a lot of brain stimulation stuff, different compounds that affect you in a lot of different ways, that they proclaim, that are that have other effects, positive effects, whether it's making you think faster, more cognitive awareness, relaxation, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that people want to feel, there's a pill for you. And, so there are a lot of people that are compounding and making different combinations of more organic things, plants, other non-chemicals, more, like I said, organic stuff, roots, herbs, all sorts of things like that. And they're marketing those as, different products that can benefit people. The big problem is, well, I can make a pill and give it to you and say it does a lot of things. A lot of people do that. That's a unfortunate problem with a free market and a free society, is where people get to make bad decisions. So the government's there to help guide you to all of their corporate sponsors. What a quinky-dink. We'll talk more about it on the other side. Your calls are welcome. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio.
And I say, hey, hey, live it like we're renegades. Hey, hey, live it like we're renegades.
Welcome back. We dare to apply logic to some of the things, the narratives, the PR pushes that are just being thrust upon the American people, especially. It's not just selling us down the river into perpetual, endless debt and somewhere between here and oblivion. Both candidates can do that. There's no point in arguing where the country is headed for a lot of people. And I think that's kind of one of the, unique things about this show. It's pretty low key. We have a few thousand listeners, and I say that about 10,000 listeners per episode, which is humbling, and I thank all of you for being part of the show. Same time, pretty limited hangout for people in the know. So a lot of preaching to the choir, so I appreciate your time letting me rant and rave to some of the more moderate people out there about vaccines, nutritional supplements, some of the things that the FDA government wants to regulate, and understanding the business and the environment. Living free is living dangerously, and people have to understand that. But how dangerous? Do you want the government to let you know that XYZ pill that says that it's going to do all of these things, it's going to make you smarter, better, more energetic, more healthy? Do you want the stamp of approval by a semi-autonomous organization? Probably better than you get in a lot of other countries, where you have tiger paw and other, things that are ground into pills that people believe give them, strength and girth and stamina. As evil as Pfizer may be with their very profitable model of selling erectile dysfunction supplements themselves, the side effects to a lot of people are worth it. It's absolutely worth it to see blue to some people. So who am I to say that they shouldn't have that and enjoy those kind of things? But that's what it really comes down to. You should be able to opt out of vaccinating yourself and or your children, because if vaccines are so great and so many other people have them, they shouldn't have to worry about you because they have their vaccine. And that's a logic that that will make you a quote unquote denier. Do you want to be that guy? Do you want to be the denier? Obviously, it's very hard to be that guy. And I try to be pretty moderate when talking about these issues, because quite frankly, there's plenty of stuff you could point people to on the internet, lots of articles, research. Most people don't want to be overwhelmed with that, and that's why I kind of have a baseline approach. I'm not a virologist. I don't bring people on that are experts in the health and medical fields because, it's kind of boring. And so the commentary and the common sense approach that most people will take is probably more valuable because, let's be honest, most people are going to believe their favorite doctor. Most people believe their favorite lawyer. And it's really hard to pull people back. I don't waste time trying to tell people who they should vote for between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's not even a discussion worth getting into. One of the things that's changing every day is the model, the medium of media itself. And so you see this poll. I saw headlines on InfoWars about if Hillary Clinton is elected, she's going to go after the alternative news. She's going to shut down Breitbart, all of these other conservative websites. They're going to have a Ministry of Truth, and they're going to have something, like an actual government officialdom for news reporting. When you dig into it, it's not quite that, but she is definitely not a big fan of free media, and there's very few models to get free. There is no model to get a free, unbiased, corporate controlled type of narrative or reporting without subscriber models. Newspapers used to have a lot of anonymity. They could report dangerous things. They didn't have to worry about corporate sponsors because they had physical paper subscribers that were paying them monthly, and that recurring revenue along with advertising was a really steadfast model to get at least. I mean, of course, there's Hearst Publishing, all of the all of that, and of course, local papers, no matter how independent, always have their own agenda, and the writers themselves. Everybody has a bias. Everybody has an agenda, but the model's changed, and so internet browsing today is at a point where you're having ad wars. Advertising is the worst model out there. Most people hate it. They hate advertisements. They hate being sold things that they don't want. But advertising revenue is a model that may or may not be around in the next few years. We hear a lot about the sharing economy, time sharing, Bitcoin, other monetary systems, not state run systems, and other ways to produce goods without producing people that are consumers. You're supposed to be working in the interest of the listener, of the viewer, of the reader. Always. That should be paramount. But how do you do that when you have commercial advertising? So one of the things a lot of people have done when it goes to to save their bandwidth, to maintain anonymity, to protect themselves from pop-ups, viruses, malware, a lot of nasty things that may be waiting for you on the end of that shortened link. People install ad blockers. There's a few of them. There's Ghostry, there's Adblocker Plus. Some of them are add-ons for your browser. Some of you guys are super technical, have Ubuntu servers and actually blacklist IP addresses of known ad servers, and there's ad servers out there that are available that make it basically so that your browser won't even look at those advertisements. And so for maybe about 10% of the people that decide to use blacklisted news, they use ad blockers, and it presents a problem because the model of advertising that we have is that we serve banner ads, which for better or worse, that are pretty non-intrusive, easy to navigate away from, and we've tried to have a pretty ethical model of not bombarding people with ads and pop-ups and stuff that chases you around the screen. You want the user's experience to be, because you're your user yourself. You want it to be pretty seamless. You don't want it to crash people's browsers. You don't want it to blow up their video card. And so, we've had a pretty balanced approach. So one of the things that I did this week, I've been working on for quite a while, is an option for people that use those ad blockers to be able to go to the website and basically receive a pop-up or maybe a banner, embed it in the website that basically says, hey, we get it. You have an ad blocker installed. You can support the website, look at it free of charge, along with other websites for $1.99 a month. Or, it'd be really cool if you just whitelist us with your ad blocker, since you're getting free content. You could just, load a couple ads. And so it was kind of a social experiment just to see what would happen. If you go to blacklistednews.com right now, there's a pretty lengthy response, and I wrote an article talking about the response to basically having this ad blocker on the website literally for 2 or 3 hours today. I think from 12 noon to about 2 o'clock. So that puts it right at 2. Well, actually, it was East Coast, so it was 3 hours. People were just emailing me. Oh my God, how dare you ask me for anything? Your site is really, some low blows. There's nothing I can't get at other places. This will never work. You're not remaining relevant. You're blah, 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 blah. Other people that have services where they don't really recognize that they're using an ad blocker, like Readability, probably shocked and don't understand that they have an ad blocker. So, the outpour, the overall response was hugely negative. And so we decided to dismiss this trial run, this social experiment, but it brought up a lot of interesting thoughts. And I was most interested in the comments about people providing alternative solutions or alternative business models to Blacklisted News. So it's interesting because these old models are being destroyed. And I get it. Things that I'm doing today are not going to be relevant 5-10 minutes from now. Things that used to be a norm will be the exception, and things that used to be the exception, they become the norm. And so, I think it's interesting because it, brings up this broader debate of whether or not we are remaining relevant. Because as a pre-Plato philosopher, Hercules, I think is how you say it, said, the only constant in this world is change. And it's true. It's true. So I find it really interesting because I know a lot of people who listen to this network and be really happy if the donations equaled the amount of revenue that was required to run it 24 hours a day. I would love to have 10,000 subscribers that would pay 50 cents a month to Blacklisted News, just so that they could get the content and appreciate the effort that I put into it. But it's an unreasonable business model. People were just, I would never give you a penny to read your website. Oh my God. And you just realize how people don't have a lot of people, not everyone. We got some great comments. Don't let me make this a complete negative, because there was a lot of people that actually did sign up, did decide to move forward with paying $1.99 to continue to browse the website ad free, regardless of whether we put this firewall up or not. People would still enjoy using their ad blockers, reading the website relatively ad free. So you realize, it's people, you would think if we are in an era, and we absolutely are, it's not a matter of whether we think we are, but we are in an era of an information war that is happening each and every day. That's the reality of competing ideas and competing products that we have for people out there. Don't get it wrong. Sean Hannity has a product. Rush Limbaugh has a product. MSNBC has a product. The alternative media has products. The only caveat to that is that they are a breath of fresh air compared to the other commercial advertisers that would absolutely never support independent media. So, you're supporting other people that support renegades when it comes right down to it, when you support those advertisers. But, at some point, there has to be a different model. The sharing model, the new economy, capitalism. I read a really interesting piece about, the ever-expanding necessity that capitalism creates, always creating. And I think the argument is actually kind of moot and doesn't make sense unless you're looking at, corporate interest-driven profits and, the entire usury system that we have today. So don't get capitalism and crony Marxist central government, creation of wealth intertwined. There's definitely a lot of different philosophies as to how much or how little government regulation there should be. And that's what, I try to convey, is that living dangerously is living free. I'll say it once again, it is. Do you have the right to make decisions? Does the government know best all the time? And many times, people do things. This is my rebuttal to anarchists. People do things that are at their own disinterest a lot of the time, depending on situation and mental clarity. People do things that are not good for short-term gain, even though, people are destructive to themselves. And to think that people are always pragmatic, that makes you a crazy person. There's one thing I know, is that people don't always do what you expect them to do, and that is really what it means to be human. You're not going to do, there's always the X factor in something, some grand equation. It's probably one of the things that slows down globalist plans to unite the world under one centralized infrastructure or one huge global banking system. We might talk about some of the schisms that we see in that, especially with regards to Turkey warming to Russia and China, Erdogan hanging out with Vladimir Putin. The anti-Putin, anti-Russian politics are so thick when it comes to Hillary Clinton's emails, DNC emails. All the media can talk about is, how Donald Trump is working with the Russians and blah, 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 blah. Just kind of nonsensical things in the background. A lot of speculation, a lot of things. Oh, I heard the Julian Assange interview with the guy, the NPR guy, this week, the morning edition host, and basically, do you feel like you are upsetting, you're challenging the validity of the U.S. elections by allowing a foreign state actor to influence? He's like, you haven't read the 20,000 emails that talk about how horrifically contrived the DNC was with the mainstream media pushing for Hillary and doing everything it could to even attacking the Jewishness of Bernie Sanders, who has gone off into the sunset now. Of course they don't want to talk about that. Bernie does want to talk about his new $600,000 summer home, because each and every one of you out there deserves a $600,000 summer home. Yeah, he probably doesn't think that. Anyway, quick break, final segment. Your comments are welcome. Text me, 512-222-3067. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, that's why I think they're so worried about Donald Trump. They don't know if he can navigate the careful, dangerous political relationship that we have with the Chinese and the interdependence that has been created through neoliberalism, whether or not that will be able to be, massaged. And of course, all those Republicans and Democrats want to get their hand into the pie, of course. I mean, if you look at Hillary Clinton, she has done really, really well for herself. Millions upon millions of dollars, not only for her, but wink, wink, her very virtuous, altruistic donation slush fund, which is the Clinton Global Initiative. So, there's no confusing, I think, people that are slightly aware of the absolute corruption, cronyism, the revolving door between Wall Street, the Pentagon, K Street, which is AKA the Jewish Mafia, and the military-industrial complex, all of these groups that are vying for relevance and further expansion, more profit, more reasons to use their products. It becomes part of like this, cycle that you see of consumerism, whether it's vaccines, whether it's your right to take pills. Do you need to know? Do you have the right to know? And if you ask, do you trust that person to compound something for you? Do you have the right to drink raw milk? Do you have the right to do as you wish, or to refuse to comply to a government that you find to be somewhat tyrannical? Do you have an option? Those are the kind of things that really do matter, and they're a repeated theme that you see in life. The battle for free will, if you will. And I don't think it's global enslavement. I think that it's well, maybe I do think it's global enslavement. The more I think about it, it's definitely a system where you have people that have representation through power and money. And if you don't want that, if you don't want people to be able to have a completely fair pathway with hard work and everything else that it takes to get where you can manage billions of dollars, what's the alternative? The Venus Project, government, computers, automated politics, automated lawyers, a society that has no free will, where algorithms determine who receives and who does not from the government, the all-important. Those things are just, I don't know, some of the most fascinating questions that I have that a lot of people just aren't talking about. It's not just, groups and targets of individuals that are enemies of freedom, because there's plenty of those. There is plenty of, the Nancy Pelosi's. I think of Barbara Boxer. I think of John McCain. I think of, Boehner and all of these, classic political elites. And, I'm not too impressed. I don't think they're really that elite. But they are the alternative to freedom, to living dangerously. I hope you guys have a safe week living dangerously, being free. Humans here on planet Earth, and you are the alternative to all of the crap that we talked about tonight. I'll be back next week for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Go to blacklistedradio.com, the hub, the mothership for everything that you need to be part of this show, exclusive content, and more. And yeah, that's it. Bye.